here on the ground. So we've got those extra police staff on the ground here. Police will absolutely be stamping down on any criminal activity that's been happening.
So to go back to your response, we were talking about support before. We're talking to locals today who feel that the government, central and local government, is not there for them, and that a lot of the work that they're doing is actually on their own back, and they're having to go back to work next week. You know, they're in tears. Is the government actually doing that? What reassurance can you give that hard-hit areas won't be forgotten and that help is coming?
This is going to be an ongoing process. It's not all going to be over in a matter of weeks. It's going to take months and in some cases years before everything gets back to normal. We are in this for the long haul. We will support these communities that have been affected to get back up and running again and to try and get life back to something that looks like normal as quickly as possible. But then we will also be here for the recovery and the rebuild as well.
Will the government consider putting more boots on the ground and taking up overseas offices of people to help? Communities we're talking to say that would make a difference. There's not enough people.
We'll absolutely be making sure that we get people where they are needed. We'll have some more announcements on that in the coming days.
On your police briefing, can you give us a bit of the updated numbers? So you mentioned the very small number of grave concerns, probably the way that that's being characterised at the moment, and just noting that a lot of people that we talk to, partly because of the rumours that have been out there, believe that the government and the media as well haven't been truthful about the number of people who have passed away and that kind of thing. So can you give us an update there on the latest numbers?
I can confirm that as of this morning, the police have no additional bodies that they are trying to identify, so no other known deaths that they're trying to contact the next of kin of as of this morning. In terms of the overall number, there's about 100, I think it was 151 that they're down to in terms of people who haven't been contacted, but it's an even smaller number. I don't have a specific number, but it's a much smaller number in terms of people who were last seen in the flood affected areas.
So we're saying less than 10, less than 20?
I don't have a specific number, but they've said that it's a smaller number than that in terms of people who were last seen in the flood affected areas.
On your response to crime, just going back to that topic there, do you think perhaps you got the tone of your response not quite right, kind of focusing on what level of crime was reported as opposed to empathising with what people were actually feeling?
Look, I was trying to do both, and if people took from one of the comments that I made any suggestion that I was diminishing the way they were feeling, I certainly regret that. I absolutely understand the level of stress that people in the community have been under. My message to them is the police are here, the police are active, the police are visible. If something is happening that you're uncomfortable about, if there is criminal offending going on, please report it to the police. They are here and they will absolutely take action on it.
And so they've taken matters into their own hands, and a lot of communities, as you will have seen, community roadblocks. Thinking back to COVID, we had those roadblocks and that was a long process to get that partnership working, but it seems like things have gone a lot smoother now. What do you see as the potential for these kind of future disasters where we can stand something like this up, where it's a community plus police plus army roadblock? Are you open to that?
Look, the key thing is to work with the police. Look, I think in many cases when the police are stretched, they welcome the community's support and they can make sure that whatever's happening is happening safely. That's the key thing. Keep the lines of communication open with the police. We see examples of this even when we're not at a disaster time. We see community patrols who actually, can be the eyes and ears of the police and can be a really valuable supplement to that. So where people are passionate and want to volunteer and they want to help, just make sure that they're directing that through the police, and that can be directed to the place where it can make the biggest difference.
Can I change the subject? First-hand accounts of some of these reports coming in. What sort of reports have you been informed about since you've been here?
Like I said, I've only been on the ground an hour or two now. I'm going to be on the ground for a while longer, including heading up to Wairoa. So a lot of the reports that I have seen have either been coming from the team here who are based here, or from the police and from the conversations that I've been having with them.
Reports have they been?
Look, the police are reporting that there is there is a greater degree of concern and anxiety within the community, but they are also reporting that any crime that is reported to them, they are following up on, and they are confident that they will, as they do, hold those accountable.
Sorry,
hold those responsible accountable, I should say.
I think what Stuart's asking is what are the nature of those crimes?
Well, look, people have seen the nature of them reported in the media. I'm not going to. I can't do the police's job for them.
No, but you've had a conversation with them this morning, so
yeah. And again, I'll let the police share that information. That's their job, not mine.
Well, is there a particular focus on gang activity at this time? Stuart Nash came out and said they need to pull their head in. Is there more you can be doing on this?
Look, the police are very active in the gang space at the moment. there's no room for the gangs to step in and exploit the situation in any way. And I fully expect, and I know that the police will take a very dim view of that, and they will come down hard on it if it happens.
Do you fully support your minister's comments on the gangs?
Look, I don't have any time for the gangs. I would far rather that they found something useful to do with their lives.
So have you been advised of, because this is again one of the rumours that we hear is that the gangs are incorporated in the level of crime that we're seeing here. Have you been advised of how much participation they have in it?
No, it's difficult to put a specific number on it. The police certainly reported in the early days some heightened degree of tension between the gangs. They have also reported that in the last few days that seems to have quietened down a little bit. But like I said, I don't have a lot of time for the gangs at all. I would far rather that those people got on and did something useful and constructive with their time.
Just some questions on some wider issues.
Yes.
The Philippines, have you been advised whether the body of the New Zealander killed in the Philippines is on its way home and the killer has been caught?
No, sorry, I haven't.
What can you say to the family?
Look, obviously my sympathy is with the family. I don't have a recent update on the facts of that case, but clearly in any of these situations it's incredibly distressing for the families.
Just on Papua New Guinea and the captured pilot, what is the government's position on West Papuan independence?
Our position has not changed on that matter, and we certainly are not going to change our international foreign policy based on hostage taking. We've never done that in the past, and we're not going to do that now. I can't comment on the specifics of the individual case at the moment. When it's appropriate, when there's an appropriate opportunity to do that, that doesn't compromise any work that's being undertaken there, then I'll do that. But at the moment, I'm not in a position to provide.
Just a civil defence question. How much rain are you expecting over the next wee while? How's it going to affect operations? Advice to people out there looking at the rain radar and it bringing up some.
Yeah, most definitely. Look, we've now gone to a orange warning, and we're expecting between 100 to 150 mils, but that is over a 48-hour period. It's not like the cyclone where we had all of that arrive and more over a very short period of time. We're doing a lot of work in terms of doing some planning around possible evacuations and some possible evacuations. The Regional Council is doing a lot of work in terms of making sure that the stop banks are repaired, emergency repairs, and the telemetry system is back up and running. We'll have people, boots on the ground overnight on Friday in particular. Friday is probably the worst day. Our advice to people is on Friday, if you can not travel around and stay at home, that would be advisable. But the key thing is that people actually need to take this seriously and keep up to date with the weather reports. And as you say, the rain radar is a great tool in getting onto that Met Service website. So that's where we're at the moment.
What are the areas of concern? You just say for possible evacuations. What areas have you got concern?
Well, obviously areas where the stop banks were breached during Gabrielle, and that's where the modelling has been done. At this stage, though, the Regional Council has advised us at the rain rates we're talking about, which spread over that 48-hour period, they're pretty confident that the river, the major rivers, should be able to handle the water because it's around about 4 to 6 millimetres per hour at maximum. But we're taking this seriously. We're going to have people on the ground during the evening and at night actually watching where those breaches are. And if we need to, we're preparing emergency mobile alerts. And if we need to, we will tell people they need to evacuate. And the local councils are preparing their civil defence centres.
Bridges, have you got any concerns about particular bridges at the moment? What impact this weather could have on them?
There's a lot of slash on those bridges.
Yeah. I mean, look, we really are going to have to take what it comes. Again, forecasts. But we are, as I said, doing some planning, getting some public messaging out there over the next day or so, and we'll be keeping a real close eye on things overnight, particularly on Friday.
I suppose a more specific question would be, are there any bridges of concern where you're looking at going, there's a lot of slash there, if there's a bit of rain in that area, this one could go as well?
Yeah. Look, I don't have any specific information on specific bridges, but definitely our lifelines and critical infrastructure teams are looking at that sort of thing.
Just one from Minister Nash on forestry again. On RNZ last week, you quoted some figures. You said 40% of the build-up is forestry slash and 60% is native. Where are those numbers from?
From evidence of those who've been out there having a look at it. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? what this inquiry is going to look at is land use practices on highly erodible soils in Tairāwhiti. It doesn't, and the forestry stuff doesn't matter if it's plantation forestry, or production forestry, permanent forestry, or indigenous forestry. What we are finding is there is a lot of wood ending up on our beaches, taking out our bridges, and it's unacceptable. So we need to look at how we best manage this to mitigate the risk of this sort of thing happening in the future.
So I know you don't want to, you don't want to speculate on what's going to come out of it, but how transformative do you want this inquiry to be?
Well, first of all, I want the forest industry to take responsibility for their operations, and I know they've begun to do that, and I know that some of the companies have actually retired some of the forestry which was planted for production. They've moved that into permanent, or they said we're just not going to harvest this. But it has to address the issue that 10,000 people in Tairāwhiti signed a petition about, because they are really concerned about what is happening in the forests and on the beaches. So this is a high-powered team. We take this incredibly seriously, and the recommendations that come out of this we will take very seriously as well.
I suppose the more specific question would be, out of this inquiry, is it your aim that we will never see another bridge being taken out by slash again?
Impossible to say that. Absolutely impossible to say that.
You say that the forestry companies are going to take responsibility for it. Do you trust them?
So, look, the forestry companies know that they operate under a social licence. And keep in mind that forestry up the East Coast employs...
Do they know that?
Yes, they do. And forestry and wood processing employs a lot of people up the East Coast. So this is a very important part of the economic framework of the East Coast of the North Island. So, you're not going to see a recommendation that says, A, there'll never be another tree planted, or B, we're going to stop harvesting all forestry. That is not going to be the case. What we will see, I suspect, but again, I don't want to preempt anything, is a series of recommendations around how we can better manage the land and the forestry slash that comes from harvesting operations on those highly erodible soils. But keep in mind, in some areas, forestry actually is the answer. It's just the type of forest, the type of management regime put in place on those specific soils.
There's a couple for the Prime Minister.
Last few questions.
A couple from me. What do you have to say to families who had to spend thousands of dollars to get private helicopters to evacuate their family, or to get in, whether it be food supplies or farm supplies, because the choppers that the government was coordinating, the Army and Defence Forces coordinating, were too busy with rescues?
Look, clearly we had a lot of choppers in the air in those first few days, and the local teams were coordinating with the military to make sure that we were getting them to the areas of greatest need first. I absolutely acknowledge that there was the private sector effort contributing to the rescue response and to the immediate need response as well, and I thank them for that.
So is the government going to pay them back? Because, we heard from you just a couple of days ago, we heard that we had enough choppers on the ground. Clearly, if people are having to spend thousands of dollars to evacuate their kids, there aren't enough choppers there.
It's not something that I have looked at this point. I'm happy to take it away and have a look at it.
Different tack. How was question time yesterday?
It's the first question time for the year, and on balance it went okay. I did make a mistake, and one of my answers around tax has been pointed out by the opposition. So I'll own that. In my first outing at question time, I made a mistake. But I wasn't perhaps as well prepared for a pop quiz on the government's finances as I should have been. I'll make sure that I'm better prepared next time.
So you're going to be brushing up on the numbers, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Prime Minister, how confident are you in the communication lines between NEMA and the local civil defence agencies?
Well, NEMA have got people on the ground working with local civil defence agencies now, so I'm confident that that's leading to a good level of communication. Obviously, in the first 24 to 48 hour period, there are challenges there because the phone lines are out, the power was out, and so on. But we got boots on the ground to work with the local teams as fast as we possibly could. And as a result, I'm confident that communication channels are open and are working effectively.
Well, yesterday NEMA reported there are about 729 people in evacuation centres nationwide. But in Hawke's Bay alone, civil defence was reporting 759 people. So those numbers obviously don't stand.
I actually have the national director from NEMA here. I'm happy to defer that question to him.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Look, the numbers do move around a bit. I'm standing next to the group controller. We've got a significant number of NEMA staff here and have since the beginning of the event. If there's some variation in the consistency of those numbers, happy to look into that and make sure that gets straightened out. It can depend a little bit, as to date stamp on the information that's being provided. But I'm very confident in the connection and the relationship between NEMA and Hawke's Bay CDF Group.
The youth are head here in Hawke's Bay told me yesterday that they're working on a priority list of 40 people. Do you know about that, and has that number reduced?
Look, I can't speak to USAR information in any detail. I think that's an operational matter for them. I'll let them lead that one out.
I mean, so just on businesses affected by Cyclone, are you looking at a package to help businesses, something like rent relief, which we saw when businesses came on?
So I haven't got anything further to announce today. What you will have seen us announcing earlier in the week was a two-pronged package. One was support through the local business associations that will be made available to businesses as quickly as possible. The other is through the Ministry for Primary Industries, a support to our primary sector, our farmers, our growers, to make sure that they're getting support for the clean-up effort. And we're trying to get that out the door as quickly as possible as well. Those are immediate responses though. As the extent of the damage and where the damage is and the true kind of, I guess, need is better understood, then we'll be able to shape up further response, support based on that. One of the things that we don't want to do is misdirect support to those who perhaps don't need it, and therefore not provide the degree of support that's required by those who really, really do need it.
So it's something you could consider?
The announcements we made this week are a start. They're certainly not the end of it. You can get the last question.
You've spoken about Build Back Better, and at the moment all our cables for power and telecommunications goes under bridges, which obviously in hindsight isn't the best way. What is the alternative to that?
Well, and some of those bridges are quite old as well, so we have to acknowledge that. So I think one of the challenges we'll have ahead of us as a country, not just in the areas that have been affected here, but right the way across New Zealand, will be to look at the resilience of our infrastructure and how prepared we are to cope with these kind of events. And certainly the single point of failure that we have in a lot of small communities where their water, their telecommunications, their wastewater, their power and their main transport link all are on the same old bridge. Those are areas of concern for us that we're going to have to look at. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,